Hi, I'm Alexander Hamilton. I was born on January 11th, 1757. I was born on Nevis, an island in the Caribbean Sea. I was an orphan because my father left when I was young, and 3 years later my mother died from really bad sickness. I was very smart. I learned about money and business at a young age. I was running a business by age 14. A rich businessman paid for me to go to college in America. I fought in the Revolutionary War and became a war hero. I was the first Secretary of the Treasury. I built the first national bank, and I died in a duel with Ehrenberg in 1804. My face is now on a $10 bill.
Hi, I'm George Washington, the first President of the United States of America. I was born on February 22nd, 1732, on a farm in Virginia. I had to ride my horse to school because cars were not invented in my childhood. When I was 16 before the war, I was measuring land and making maps. When I was 20, I joined the Virginia Army. Soon, I was put in charge of many soldiers. After 8 long years, my army won the Revolutionary War. I was a hero of the war and was elected to be the first President of the United States of America. I could not run the country all by myself. I chose Thomas Jefferson and Alexander Hamilton to help me. I have 30 dogs. 3 of the hounds were named Drunkard, Tippler, and Tipsy. I died on December 14, 1799. I was president 2 times and was president from 1789 to 1797. Associate with men of good quality if you esteem your own republication, for it is better to be alone than in bad company. And I'm on the $1 bill!
I have an idea. Ding! I have a light bulb on top of my head. That light bulb is there because Thomas Edison invented the very first light bulb. I am Thomas Edison. I was born in 1847 in Ohio in a small brick house. As a small child, I loved to do experiments. When I was 6 years old, I didn't mean to, but I burnt my father's barn down. When I was 12 years old, I got a job at the railroad station so I could make more money to do more experiments. When Alexander Graham Bell invented the telephone, people's voices sounded scratchy and unclear. So I improved the telephone by putting little pieces of carbon inside that were called a transmitter. I always remember the sad story of the Great Chicago Fire of 1871. That made me think, how can we light homes in a safer way? As a result, I created the very first light bulb. I made the world a better place, a safer place, and a brighter place. Ding!
Hi, my name is Anne Frank. I was born June 12, 1929 in Frankfurt, Germany. My father, Otto, was a businessman. My mother, Edith, stayed home with my sister, Margot, and I. My family and I were Jewish. In 1933, Adolf Hitler came into power. Hitler did not like Jewish people. He wanted to get rid of them. My father felt that we would be safer in the Netherlands. So in 1934, my family and I moved to Amsterdam. I spent the next 8 years living happily in Amsterdam, going to school and making new friends. In 1942, it all changed. Hitler, after starting World War II in 1939 by invading Poland, occupied the Netherlands. Jewish people were no longer allowed to own businesses, have money in the bank, go to the movies, or even the park. We had to wear a special yellow patch on our clothes. One by one, all of our rights have been taken away from us. For my 13th birthday in 1942, I received a diary. I named it Kitty. 2 weeks later, I got a notice in the mail. My sister Margot was to be sent to labor camp in Germany. My family and I went into hiding. We lived in a secret hideout in an attic behind my dad's factory. The space was very, very small, and we had to share it with another Jewish family. We could not go outside, turn on the lights, or make any noises. We did not want anyone to notice us. In 1944, after hiding for 2 years, my family and I were arrested and brought to the Bergen-Belsen concentration camp in Germany. This is where I died 6 months later. My diary that I kept while in hiding was made into a book called A Diary of a Young Girl. It has been translated into more than 65 languages. My story highlights the horrors of genocide, mass discrimination, and intolerance, but also the power that tolerance can bring. With my diary, I hope I can help and inspire people to stay positive and optimistic even through difficult times. As I always say, think of all the beauty still left around you and be happy.
Hi, I am Hillary Clinton. I was born October 20th, 1947 in Chicago. I had 2 younger brothers and I was taught to stand up for myself. My family would often talk about politics. I would babysit the Margaret workers' children and also raise money for them. I wanted to be an astronaut when I got older, but I was told that I couldn't because I was a girl. I felt that I was equal to boys. I faced this obstacle and overcame it. I became First Lady in 1993 and a New York Senator in 2000. In 2008, I became Secretary of State. Then in 2016, I ran for President of the United States. It is not the strongest species that survive nor the most intelligent, but the one most responsive to change. My name is Charles Darwin. I have 3 older sisters. I was born in Shrewsbury, England, February 12, 1809. I had 3 older sisters, 1 older brother, and 1 younger sister. As a child, I enjoyed reading and being outside. I loved nature and I spent hours outside observing plants and insects. Once while I was playing in my garden, I found 2 beetles. I put 1 in each hand. Then I spotted a 3rd. I put it in my mouth and headed home. A squirrel did something weird in my mouth, so I had to spit it out. I was sad to lose that beetle. When I was 16, I went to university to study to be a doctor. Then I saw that the sight of blood made me feel queasy, so I decided to study to be a minister. After college, I went on a 5-year voyage around the world on a ship called the Beagle. I got really seasick, which contributed to stomach problems for the rest of my life. I saw many new plants and living creatures. I studied everything I saw and kept a very detailed journal. I found fossilized seashells on the top of the Andes Mountains. For the first time in my life, I witnessed a volcano erupt, an earthquake, and the aftermath of a tsunami. These things helped me understand how the earth formed and how animals lived. In 1859, I published on the origin of species. It was one of the most important books on science ever written. I made people think of nature in a new way. I died on April 19th, 1882. I was 73 years old.
I am Lucille Law. I performed in I Love Lucy. I was born in Jamestown, New York in 1911. When I was 8, I went to live with my grandmother, who thought having fun was a bad thing. I also had no mirrors in my house, only one in the bathroom, because my grandma thought they made you think too much of yourself. At one point, I was homeless. All I had was 4 cents. When someone was at a restaurant, I would get their food before it got thrown away. I was homeless because I kept trying to get a job, but no one would let me in. Finally, I got a job in a movie. Then I started working with CBS to develop a new TV show. Our TV show was I Love Lucy, where my husband in the TV show was my real husband, Desi Arnaz. Desi was also from Cuba. My most famous episode was Vitamin Benjamin.
Say it again.
My most famous episode is Vitamin Benjamin, where I tried to make a TV commercial. After a successful career, I was awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom. My famous quote is, "Love yourself first and everything falls into line."
in 1954 in Kosciuszko, Mississippi. I am the first African American in history to become a billionaire, but I wasn't always this rich. My father left home before I was born. I actually grew up pretty poor. I started a radio station. I am a famous speaker. I got presented the Medal of Freedom in 2013 by Obama. I am on the front cover of the O magazine all the time because I am the creator of it. It makes me happy to help the poor. I built schools for the poor. Think like a queen. A queen is not afraid to fail. Failure is another stepping stone to greatness.
Hi, my name is Taylor Swift. I was born in Pennsylvania. I live with my mom and dad and brother Austin. I love to ride horses, play soccer, and sing to the Disney movies when I was little. As I grew up, I fell in love with country music, so I began to sing and write music and play guitar. Some of my friends did not like country music, so they made fun of me. So I began to write my feelings in a diary. At the age of 13, my family decided to move to Nashville, Tennessee, so I could be closer to the country music world. A lot of songs came from my diary and different events that happened in my life. I won many awards and I worked hard to succeed. I want to be a good role model to children and give back in many ways. No matter what happens in life, being good to people is a wonderful legacy to leave behind. I hope you learned something about me. Remember, no matter what happens in life, being good to people is a wonderful legacy to leave behind.
My name is Amelia Earhart. I was born on July 24th, 1897 in Atchison, Kansas. In the summer before 8th grade, I went to the Iowa State Fair where I saw my first airplane. When I was a teenager, my parents split up and I moved to Chicago. On June 18th, 1928, I became the first woman to fly across the Atlantic Ocean. After flying across the Atlantic, I wrote my own column about aviation in the Cosmopolitan magazine, even though I didn't like to write. In 1929, I set 3 new speed records. I went 180 miles per hour. I also designed women's clothes for active living that was sold at Macy's. In 1931, I married George Putman. I thought I would give it a try after he asked me 6 times. In 1935, I flew from Hawaii to California, becoming the first person to fly that route solo. On June 1st, 1937, I started my journey around the world from Miami, Florida. I was last heard from on July 3rd, 1937, in somewhere near Harland Island. Still to this day, no one has found me or my airplane. My famous quote is, "Honor's the foundation of courage." I was the first woman and youngest in space. I am Sally Ride. I was born on May 26, 1951 in Los Angeles. I earned 4 degrees, including a PhD in astrophysics. And I became the first woman Capcom. The Capcom is the only person on Earth that can talk to the astronauts while they are in space. I went on 2 space missions, the 7th mission and the 13th. On my 2nd mission into space, I met another fellow woman astronaut named Catherine Sullivan. We found out we were in first grade together. Just over a year later, the Challenger went back into space again and exploded right after takeoff. All the astronauts on board were my closest friends. I was appointed by the president to find out what happened. We found out that the O-rings leaked. I died on July 23, 2012 in my home in San Diego. I would like to be remembered as someone who is not afraid to do what she wanted to do, and someone who is not afraid and someone who took risks along the way in order to achieve her goals.
Hi, I'm Orville Wright. I had 3 brothers. We're about Lauren in relation. My mother was a tinkerer because she fixed things around my house. But my mother died a few years later with tuberculosis. When I was 12, I had typhoid fever for 2 months. Luckily, a doctor figured out how to cure me. When I was 15, I had a printing business. Later on, one guy came in and said, "Can you make a printing newspaper?" I said yes, and I did. So I got the first award for making the first newspaper in my town. I didn't want the printing business anymore, so I looked up with the scientists how birds fly. We couldn't get enough data for us to see how we could fly, but then on the radio it said, a French scientist made a glider that flew 100 feet until he made a hard landing. A few days later, he died. I thought making a plane could be a good experience, so I teamed up with my brother Wilbur. We teamed up to make the toy airplane. It worked. We tried a bigger one. It didn't work. Then we tried a ginormous real one in a different technique. It worked. After all that, I said, if there's a will, there's a way.
Hi, I'm civil rights leader Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. I was born in Georgia in 1929. I dedicated my life to achieving equality and justice for all Americans of color. I believe that peaceful refusal to obey was the best way to bring change. I experienced racial prejudgments early in my life. Segregation was both law and custom in the South. I was arrested several times during my lifetime. I was arrested at a sit-in at a segregated lunch counter. President John F. Kennedy helped to have me released after I was placed in jail for the sit-in. I was known for speaking to large crowds, and I am considered one of the greatest public speakers in American history. My most famous speech was "I Have a Dream," delivered on the Lincoln Memorial, on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial during my Washington Million Man March. On December 10th, 1964, I was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize from Gunnar John. Sadly, on April 4th, I was assassinated by James Earl Ray on the balcony of Lauren Motel. Americans honor me on the 3rd Monday of January each year, which is known as Martin Luther King Jr. Day.
Hi, my name is Harriet Tubman. I was born in 1820. My first name was Minty. I have 5 sisters and 3 brothers. Do you know why people remember me and who they remember me as? If not, I can't explain. When I was in my childhood, I got injured in a place on my head who could have killed me. My mom nursed me up and soon I was better. My experience made me decide someday to go to the north. In 1849, as the sky grew dark, I snuck to the woods. Some people saw me. I ran to the nearest hiding spot and decided to move during the nighttime and rest during the day. Finally, I got to the north and was free. I freed about 300 more slaves. I helped in the Civil War as a nurse. In 1865, my biggest dream came true. Slavery finally ended. My heroic spirit still burns as bright as the North Star to this day. One of my most famous quotes is, "It was not me, it was the Lord." I always told him I trust in you. I don't know where to go or what to do, but I expect you to lead me, and he always did.
and I grew up with 16 siblings, a mom and a dad. We lived in Philadelphia. I learned to read and write, and most girls my age did not know how. I wanted to work with wood, considered men's work, but I cut my finger. My mom said I should do sewing, and so I did. I had 2 husbands that died in the war. I had 2 daughters. One died at age 3, and my other daughter died at 9 months old. 4 years later, George Washington asked me to sew a flag. He asked for it done as fast as possible. He said 6 pointed stars. I said no. You want it done as fast as possible, so 5 pointed stars are easier. And I sewed the American flag. Our hearts aching, our prayers praying, our flags waving, never forget.
I'm ready. Hello, my name is Rosa Parks. One day, December 1955, I was on a bus. I would not get out of my seat for a white male. I was tired of being told what to do with my skin color. That very day, I was brought to jail. Because I was black and I believed that I was just as important as a white male. Martin Luther King Jr. found I was arrested. He helped me by making a boycott. All colored people would not ride the bus. A few days after Christmas, the battle for equal rights was not won yet, but I started it off. The only tired I was being tired of giving in.